You're standing in the courtyard of a fortress that reeks of smoke and iron. The year is 1218. The city is Ottra, and it's dying. In front of you, a man is screaming, but not the way men usually scream. This sound is thinner, wet, like something vital inside him is cooking. They are holding him down. 4 soldiers. His arms are pinned. His legs kick uselessly against the stone. Above him, another man tips a bronze crucible, and you watch as liquid silver white-hot shimmering like moonlight made solid pours in a thin, precise stream into his left eye. It doesn't splash, it flows. The man's body goes rigid, his mouth tears open, but the scream dies halfway, replaced by a choking, gurgling sound. The silver keeps pouring into the air now. You can smell it, the burning flesh and metal and something else, something sweet and wrong. His skull cracks, not loudly, just a soft, wet pop like an egg, split under pressure. Steam rises from the holes in his head, and then finally, he stops moving. You've just witnessed the execution of Analik, governor of Ottra. His crime, killing a caravan of Mongol envoys and stealing their goods. Genghis Khan's envoys. A man who didn't just rule an empire, he invented new languages of pain to protect it. This wasn't war, this was a message written in molten metal and bone. By the time Genghis Khan was done with the Khwarezmian Empire, over 1 million people would be dead, cities would vanish, entire bloodlines erased, and it all started here in this courtyard with silver and screaming. The Mongol Empire from 1206 to 1368 swallowed 24 million square kilometers of earth, larger than Rome, larger than Alexander's conquest, larger than anything the world had ever seen. And they didn't just take land, they took fear itself and made it a weapon. But that execution, the one you just watched, the molten silver, the cracked skull, the wet silence after, that was mercy compared to what came next. Inelchik wasn't just any governor. He guarded the Silk Road's western gate where east met west, where caravans crossed into Mongol territory under Khan's protection. And Inelchik broke that protection. When the caravan arrived in 1218, 450 merchants carrying goods worth a fortune, Inelchik accused them of espionage, seized everything, executed them all. Their heads mounted on spikes outside the city walls. Genghis Khan sent 3 ambassadors demanding justice. The Shah of Khoras responded by beheading 2 and shaving the third's beard before sending him back. You don't humiliate Genghis Khan and expect to see spring. 6 months later, the Mongol army poured over Ottra's walls. After a 5-month siege, they dragged Inalchik from a storage tower where he'd been hiding among grain sacks. But here's the thing about the silver. Persian chronicler Jujani documented that the Mongols melted down the exact silver Inalchik had stolen. They measured it, heated it until it glowed white, then made him pay it back through his face. 4 minutes. The eye socket fills, but the liquid keeps going past the orbital bone into the sinus cavities. The heat boils tissue. Fluids expand. Pressure builds until your skull cracks, the ear canals worse, narrower, the silver pools in the inner ear first, cooking the eardrum, seeping toward the brain. You're deaf before you're dead, blind before you're quiet. Inelik thrashed for 2 minutes, then went stiff. By minute 3 he was still breathing. Short gasps, but his eyes were gone. Just silver leaking down his cheeks like mercury tears. They left his body for 3 days. When they moved him, his head clanked against stone, heavy, weighted with stolen metal. This was about principle. Steal from Khan's merchants, die by what you stole. Every merchant who passed through Ottra understood. But here's what they don't tell you. This was considered lenient because Inalchik was just a governor. 4 nobles who betrayed the Khan. There were fates darker than molten. Mongols believed spilling royal blood cursed the land, so they found a way to kill without cutting. 15 to 30 minutes, legs break, femur snapping like green wood, pelvis fractures, spine compresses vertebrae by vertebrae, but head trauma comes last. You feel everything else break first. Hear the wet crunch of your skeleton collapsing while the felt holds you perfectly still. One general lived 23 minutes. When they unrolled the carpet, his eyes were still open, his mouth full of blood from internal hemorrhaging, lungs punctured by his own ribs, no cuts, no external wounds. Technically, no blood spilled, bloodless. But here's the cruelest part. If you were rolled up second, you heard the first man's bones break, heard the muffled sounds, heard the who's getting closer. The waiting broke men before execution even started. Yet even this systematic horror was reserved for individuals. But what happened when you stole from the Khan's treasury? That's when fire and water became purification. A bronze cauldron in Karakoram, big enough to fit a man curled up. 2 Chinese tax collectors skimmed from Khan's tribute. Not much, just enough. Except this was Khan's money. When auditors traced it back, there was no trial, just the cauldron. They fill it with cold water, set it over a birch fire that's been burning since dawn. They're not rushing. The first official watches, as they position him over the cauldron for soldiers, hold him feet first. They lower him slowly. His feet touch the surface, not boiling yet, just simmering. He screams because he knows what's coming. The water's hot enough that his skin turns pink immediately. They lower to his calves, then stop. They hold him at the knees, let the temperature climb. The UN recorded this in brutal detail because it was meant to be remembered by every bureaucrat across the empire. By minute 3, skin on his feet slows off in patches like wet paper peeling. The water turns reddish, the smell, boiled meat and copper. They lower him to the thighs. His screaming changes more primal. Raw agony falls through a shredding throat. Around minute 5, the screaming stops. Not because he's dead, because the steam has scalded his throat from inside, burned his vocal cords. He's silent now, mouth open, eyes bulging, still alive, still feeling everything, just can't scream. That's when they lower him completely. The water's at rolling boil, his head goes under. 20 seconds of thrashing beneath the surface. Then it slows, weakens, stops. Total time 8 to 12 minutes. When they pull him out, he doesn't look like a person. Skin gone in places. What remains is grey, white, bloated, split open, eyes clouded, cooked in their sockets. They display the body for 3 days, while the second official watches from a cage. On the 3rd day, they boil him in the same water. This wasn't rage. In Mongol worldview, theft was spiritual pollution. Fire purifies, water cleanses. They boiled the corruption out in public view. After 1232, embezzlement in that province dropped to almost nothing for decades. Fear wasn't a byproduct of Mongol justice. Fear was justice. But these were targeted executions, one person at a time. What came next was industrial scale, a monument visible for miles, built not from stone. You smell it 3 miles from Nishapa before you see it. Human rod, thick, clawing. Then you see the pyramid 20 feet tall made of heads, Nishapa 1221. The city killed Tokucha, Genghis Khan's favorite son-in-law, during siege. When it fell, the Khan's daughter personally oversaw erasure, house to house. Every person, man, woman, child, dragged into streets. Persian historian Juveni claimed 1.7 million died. Even if exaggerated, you're talking hundreds of thousands, and they kept their heads. Mongol engineers stacked them in perfect pyramids. Multiple pyramids arranged in grids outside city walls, concentric circles, each layer smaller than below. They used lime and clay as mortar between skulls. The lime slowed decomposition enough to keep structures stable. Every 10th head was marked with wooden tags, numbers scratched in, an accounting system. Even in mass execution, they kept records. The pyramid stood for 3 to 5 years. Travelers on the Silk Road saw these towers of bone. I suck at staring in every direction. Some heads still had hair. Long black hair on women's skulls, braided and stiff. Beards on men matted with dust. The smell traveled for miles. On hot days, you could catch it half a day's right away. That was intentional. After Nishapur, surrender rates across Persia shot up 70%. Word spread. People learned, fight the Mongols and your head becomes decoration. But here's the darkest detail Juveni mentions. Some pyramids had someone buried alive inside the base. They'd force a prisoner, usually a noble, into a pit, then build head by head, layer by layer. The person at the bottom couldn't move, just felt the weight increasing, heard more heads being added, the clay squelching, and They'd scream. 4 hours, sometimes a full day, muffled by earth and bone and lime. A horrible hollow sound from inside the structure. When the screaming stopped, engineers considered the pyramid complete. Foundation blessing, a life to anchor the structure. 3 pyramids at Nishapa had this. This wasn't madness, this was policy. Calculated transformation of human bodies into propaganda, into warnings that lasted years and could be smelled from miles away. But even industrial kale terror wasn't personal. For men who'd once called Genghis Khan brother, there was something worse. Something that took 40 years of friendship and turned it into the slowest agony imaginable. There's a man tied face down to a log. His name is Jamuka. 40 years ago, he and Genghis Khan were brothers by choice. As boys, they performed the Anda ceremony, exchanged knuckle bones, swore to be one soul in 2 bodies. They hunted together, fought together, slept in the same tent during winter when survival meant keeping each other warm. Then ambition tore them apart. 20 years of war. When Jamuka finally lost, betrayed by his own followers, he asked for mercy. Not for his life, for his death. Grant me a noble death, he said. The secret history of the Mongols records his words. Let no blood fall upon the earth. He was asking for the carpet execution because despite everything, they'd been brothers. Genghis Khan looked at him for a long time, then ordered the log. Mongol justice wasn't about cruelty. It was about proportion. The punishment had to match the relationship. A stranger who betrayed you got the sword. Quick done, but someone you'd loved, someone you'd chosen as family, that required something more. The executioner places his sword at the base of Jamuka's neck. One continuous slice from neck to lower back through skin, fat down to muscle. Blood wells up, runs down both sides. Then comes the knife, smaller, sharper. He works it under the skin, peels it back slowly, wet tearing sounds, connective tissue separating. Now you can see vertebrae, white bone, the spinal cord beneath its membrane, ribs curving away, and Jamuka is still conscious. Your back doesn't have enough major vessels to kill quickly. You can lose skin, lose muscle, and survive for minutes. 5, 8, sometimes longer. You feel air on parts of yourself that should never touch air. Jamuka lasted 7 minutes. For 4 minutes, he tried to speak, mouth moving, words lost. Around minute 5, the trembling stopped, but his eyes stayed open. He died between minutes 6 and 7. No dramatic moment, just gradual absence. They left his body outside Genghis Khan's tent for a week. The message blood brotherhood means nothing if you break it. Jamuka's name appears in the secret history exactly once after. He who was once andered to the Khan died without honor and is not spoken of again. Genghis Khan never mentioned his name again. Not once. Not in 40 years. That was the real punishment, not the pain, the erasure. You betrayed brotherhood. So brotherhood forgets you existed, but betraying brotherhood earned erasure. What about desertion, cowardice in battle? For that, there was a method that turned 300 men into part of the earth itself. You're lying on your back, stakes driven through your wrists and ankles, pinned flat. 1211. Battle of Yahuling just ended. You ran, dropped your sword, tore off armor, ran until you collapsed. The Mongols noticed. They always noticed. Now you and 300 other deserters are staked in a field. You hear horses walking single file, 50 horses, maybe more. The first horse reaches the man to your left, steps on his shins. Crack. The scream is high, shrill. Horse steps on his stomach. Scream cuts off. Wet, gurgling. Your turn comes on horse 3. The hoof lands on your shin. 1,000 pounds concentrated into 4 inches. The leg shatters. White-hot pain shoots through you. Right leg, same thing. Then pelvis. Something deep inside gives. Then your stomach. Everything compresses, presses against your rib cage. You can't breathe. The horse stands there, finding balance, then steps forward. You gasp, taste copper, because your stomach just ruptured, but you're still conscious. The methodology dictates horses avoid the head until later passes. 5 horses, 10, 15. Around past 12, you can't feel your legs, nothing left to feel. Bones ground to fragments, muscle crushed to paste. Past 16 cracks ribs. Pop, pop, pop. Each one punctures something. You're drowning in your own blood. Past 19 reaches your face. You see the hoof coming. Black iron shoe blocks out the sun, lands on your forehead. Your skull compresses, flexes. Takes 800 pounds to fracture. The horse is 1,000. For one horrible moment it holds. Then it cracks loud from the inside. World goes white, then red, then grey. Less everything. When cavalry finishes, the field looks like a tilled garden. 300 shapes that used to be men, now depressions in mud, flat, broken down, and mixed with earth. Symbolism. You stepped back in battle, so your punishment was being stepped on, ground into the very dirt you ran across. But even this wasn't the rarest punishment. There was one execution so rare it was only used twice in Genghis Khan's entire reign, and it required 4 horses and terrible mathematics. 4 horses, 4 ropes, 4 directions. You in the center. You walked into Oj Khan's camp with a poison blade, made it to the tent flap before guards found your knife. Now you're naked, thick hemp rope around each wrist, each ankle. Rope stretched 50 feet to war horses, spread eagle on the ground. The executioner raises his hand drops. All 4 horses lunge. Your body doesn't know which way to go. Stretch tight, then your hip pops, dislocates. 30 seconds of sustained pulling. Muscle tears, fiber by fiber, then the whole leg rips free. Skin tears, blood sprays. You're still conscious. Left leg, another 30 seconds. Pop, tear, spray. Now you're just torso and 2 arms. Still conscious. Right arm, 40 seconds. Tears free. Left arm follows. Now you're just head and torso. Limbless, leaking. Total process, 3 to 4 minutes. You die around limb 3 or 4. The symbolism was perfect. You tried to divide the Khan from his life. So the Khan divided you from your limbs. Rashid al-Din documented this was used exactly twice during Genghis Khan's lifetime, both times for regicide attempts, both in front of the entire army after 1235. No recorded assassination attempts on Mongol Khans for 30 years. Touch the Khan and your body becomes arithmetic. 4 horses, 4 limbs, 4 directions, 0 you. None of this was madness. Every execution had a reason. Molten silver trade violation. Die by what you stole. Boiling alive, treasury theft. Fire purifies contamination. Spine split. Betrayal of brotherhood. They broke your body and erased your memory. Skull pyramids. Billboards visible for miles. Carpet execution. Bloodless death for nobility. Quartering. You tried to divide the Khan, so he divided you. The Mongol Empire didn't conquer through strength alone. They conquered through fear so calculated that cities surrendered before arrows flew. By 1279, the empire stretched from Korea to Hungary, 24 million square kilometers. 1 in 5 humans lived under Mongol rule. Most never saw a Mongol soldier. They just heard the stories. They heard and they surrendered. So the question isn't whether this went too far. The question is, how did fear become the most valuable resource in the medieval world? How did these methods build the largest land empire in history? Was this genius? Monstrosity? Both? Drop your answer below. And if you're still here, if you sat through this entire journey, through calculated cruelty, you're part of Crimson Historians now. Hit subscribe, because history this dark doesn't tell itself. It needs witnesses. It needs people willing to remember the uncomfortable parts. Still here, but won't subscribe? Tell us honestly what's stopping you. We read every single one because this is what real history looks like. Not just glory, not just conquest, but calculated, systematic, unforgettable fear that shaped empires and rewrote how humans understood power.